This week on the Authentic Media Podcast.
When it comes down to like being the best version of who you are,
right.
If you are not living in authenticity, then you are truly not being who you are.
Yeah.
And we have to stop looking at money as a dangerous tool. At the end of the day, we have to buy back our time.
Right. Some people are extroverts because of what void they're trying to fill.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to develop your personal brand and you don't realize that, it is a very, very dangerous place to be.
Have you ever wondered how to turn your passion into profit, how to attract clients, generate revenue, and also be the authority in your position? Welcome to today's episode. We are going to be talking about how to build a profitable personal brand. I'm here with my good friend, Anthony Blanco. He is a business coach, speaker, trainer, also is a podcast host of his own podcast.
Yeah, baby podcast.
Baby podcast. Hey, we're still going to give you that credit.
Okay.
And you're joining me today. We're kicking off my new podcast series, basically everything that has to do with personal branding. And I'm excited to have my business coach here near with me to walk you guys through the 5 key steps and key points that you need to know when it comes to building a profitable brand. Anthony, welcome.
Hello.
What's going on?
I'm so excited.
I know. It's been a long time coming to get to this space. And I think I'm just like, before we start recording, I said, can we just talk about the growth moment for a second?
Yes.
Can we just have everyone go back to that other episode with you and I in the hotel?
Uh-huh.
We were in a, I think it was just like a seminar room, conference room.
Yeah, like a little conference room, yes.
Like at the Cyrus Hotel here in Topeka. And boy, I just say thank you for your patience.
Yeah, we had, I don't remember. I think we both were wearing earpods connected to the mic or whatever it was. And then I can remember, like, you always show up looking fantastic. And because I shared with you a couple months ago, I'm like, man, I'm going back and listening to our podcast. And I do believe the content was good. And I said, but I looked like I just walked in off the streets.
And I was just like, I look back at that young lady and I just say, wow, thank God for the growth.
Well, it's thank God for the growth, but it's thank God to be open to growing.
That too.
So
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I'm excited to have you here, a part of this first, like I said, rebrand. And I thought you were honestly the perfect person to kick this new series off when it comes to personal branding, because when we talk about growing and we talk about, where you see yourself, you're constantly, he's that person next to me all the time that's like, okay, like nudging me. Okay, what's next? You should talk about this. You should talk about that. And I'm like, I don't know if I have enough expertise or knowledge. And he's like, it's okay. Like, just start talking. Like, so we're here today to talk about that.
Yeah, I attack her in grocery stores. Like, sometimes I think she tries to hide from me. Like if she sees me out in public, she's like, oh no. Yeah, that's probably my problem, is like too much like all the time.
Yeah.
And so I see Danielle in a grocery store and I'm like, oh, I've got like 4 more thoughts. Like, here, you could do this and this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
She's like, stop.
Yeah. No, it's good though, because honestly, it's led me to this space and to this point of what I call clarity. And this has been an interesting year. And that's going to be a whole different series that I'm going to talk about personally, about just where I've been. And I know people are like, dang, you had this great event and you went into hiding. And it's like, there's a whole reason for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so today we're talking about personal branding and why it matters. And then, kick us off here.
All right. So personal branding is something that I know, like I've always told people, I'm like, Danielle is like this very polished like person. And I have always been like a super sweatpants and hoodie guy and hat. And so just being around you has helped me reflect and up-level my game. And at the same time as understanding where you're coming from. And then I'm hearing and reading books about how to build a personal brand that creates profit, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is Danielle really going to make me do things without sweatpants and hoodies and ball caps? And so here we are. And so that leads us to like the things that you've been doing in the past. And we always say, like, remember talking about Alex Hormozy, where he started was he was just selling gym, like how to open a gym was how his deal. And so what he did is he ended up progressing to finding his brand that he does.
Right.
And so it's been fun to watch you on that journey.
Yeah.
And so like when you say, okay, so we're rebranding what you do, right? Because you've been on this journey over the course of whatever it's been, like a year or two, like self-discovery. But you've always been, I would always say that you've always been in motion.
Right.
Right. And that's the most important thing is how else are you going to discover what you should create clarity on if you're just sitting on a couch doing nothing?
Yeah.
And so you've been in motion, you've been having events, you've been building courses, you've been talking to people, and you're like, okay, so this or this or this isn't exactly what it is, but I think this thing over here is.
Yes.
And so that thing over here, let's dive into that. So what is that thing over here? It's what? I think you said it when we got started. It's how to do your personal brand.
Yeah.
And make it profitable.
Right. Exactly.
And the importance of it. Okay, so let's just go. Like, I want to know Danielle Martin's secrets on this because she's a pretty polished lady. So let's listen.
First, can I just say thank you because like I've been reminiscing and really reflecting. I've been reflecting rather on just where I've been and where I am today, and I just see a huge amount of growth. But the journey and the healing has been so necessary to get here. And so, like I said, I'm going to try my best. Like, I can't talk about it here, but specifically when it does come to personal branding, and I first want to go back and like answer your question on why I am rebranding and essentially like people call it rebranding, but it's just like, it really comes down to like, you're just deciding who you really are and who, how to basically put that on display. Right. And so for me, I am calling it a rebrand because I'm changing the name to the podcast. As you guys can see right now, it's called Authentic Media. And right now that's going to also be the business name. And so why even Authentic Media became the name is because if you know anything about me, I'm like an open book. I'm like, I can't talk to anybody without being transparent and authentic. And when it comes down to like being the best version of who you are, if you are not living in authenticity, then you are truly not being who you are. Yeah. And so the number one thing, if we can just get into it, into building a personal brand that's profitable, you have to identify like who you are at your core, right? And so later on, when I create this whole program, we are going to go into the acronym of what the core means, but like you have to start with that. And some people may think like, oh my gosh, like that's so cliche, but it really is. Like it comes down to, and I think I'll never forget the day that you told me that clarity brings confidence. Like, and it's been stuck to me like glue, but it's so true that like when you are so clear on who you are as an individual, your values, your systems, to where if anything were to come in your way, you know that like, okay, this is not aligned with my values. So I can confidently say no to this thing. I can confidently say yes to this because it aligns with where I'm trying to go. I can partner with you because we are in alignment with where I'm trying to be and who I'm trying to be. And so I felt like it was necessary to rebrand everything to Authentic Media because one, as I'm communicating to people about helping them build a personal brand, I want them to know the first thing that you have to be is authentic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's why that had to be in the name. But media is just like, okay, so I'm learning this about personal branding. So the next step is like, you have to basically identify what you want to be known for. right? And so when people look at me, I tend to ask myself like what do they think about, right? They may think, okay, she's a TV host, she has a podcast, she does events, right? Which is great, but if I want to be known for one thing, one generic thing, it's media, anything that has to do with media, right?
Right.
So that's the whole essence of why Authentic Media came together, and it's essentially now like literally I'm in the process of building it. I'm in the process of creating the language. But if we had to come down to when it comes to building a profitable brand, identify who you are at your core. And that requires you to do some internal work.
It requires you to have to, one, slow down.
Yes.
To do that work.
100%.
Two is you have to turn off the noise. And what I mean by noise, and from my perspective, is who you think other people want you to show up as.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I honestly had to do that. So after the Rise and Thrive event, I literally did go into this like this tunnel vision space, which I found out like that's a whole thing when you put out all of your energy towards this one project, and then you tend to like pull back a little bit. Like there's a reason why that happens, but it's a good energy that your soul needs and your spirit needs. And so for me, I had to literally just like pulled back from everything, and I just went in and I just said, okay, Danielle, like, who are you? Are you happy with like who you are and what you are creating? And I think there was a lot of things that arised that I didn't realize was necessary, that needed healing. But it's so necessary for you to take the time to do that. So when you are creating and you are going out in the world and you are showing up on podcasts and on all of these different projects, on stages as a coach, when you're showing up in front of your clients, people can feel when you are not being authentic.
Right.
People can feel when you're not being truly who you are. As a person that is a consumer, we know when we're being sold things.
Right.
Like we know like, okay, this is not what they truly believe in. Right. And I felt like for so long, not necessarily putting on a facade, but it was just more so, you said it earlier, I was showing up as what other people wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I was losing myself.
Yes. Yeah. And you and I have been jamming out about Myron Golden.
Yes.
And he talks about the 3 different types of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's good.
The first identity is the lie identity. That's the identity that the world tries to give you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's like on social media, what you read, what you watch, what you pay attention to, tells you how you should think or feel about whatever it is, ranging from politics or how you dress, like all kinds of different things.
Right.
So that's the lie identity. And then there is the my identity. My identity is like 80% based upon the lie identity. So it's my identity. So maybe what you were doing is you were trying to project who you thought that they wanted to see based upon what they get marketed to and sold on all the other media.
100%.
So you're trying to make an impact in them based upon what they want. So you're not being your authentic self.
Right.
Because then you're constantly asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I showing up? So it's like second guessing constantly.
Yes.
Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And then there is identity.
Yeah.
And so for those people that are faith bound, like you're faith bound, I'm faith bound. And so for us, like I'm like, who did God create me to be?
Yes. 100%.
And when I live in that full person, and that's when it goes back to the confidence creates clarity.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're not asking yourself, who do I need to be for them? I mean, you want to still provide value. Right. But you're not trying to dictate how you show up in the world based upon somebody else's lie identity. And then you turn it to your my identity instead of being authentically you.
And I think this is where, so in the acronym CORE that everyone will find in the program, the first thing when it comes to identifying who you are as at your core is the C is the clarity, right? So we identify what your purpose is, clarity in your purpose. And then, but the O is the ownership of your voice. right? Which is so important
Yeah.
because you have to understand the thoughts that are in your head, because in some way you are exerting it out in your energy, in your actions. And if the thoughts in your own head are negative, you are going to portray negative actions, and vice versa. If it's positive, it's going to come out positive.
Right.
But we have to take ownership of the voice that's in our mind, because the most powerful tool in our body is our mind.
Absolutely.
And so I am looking forward to like helping people understand the first key to branding is identifying your core, and in that is your clarity in your purpose, and also your ownership of your voice. And then the R following that is we are going to figure out how to real time apply what we are learning, right? Because that's important to figure out, okay, all of these things that I'm learning, how do I apply it and make it real? So it's going to be real time like application. And then the last letter E is going to be the execution to monetization. Because at the end of the day, we have to stop looking at, and I had to work on this myself, but stop looking at money as a dangerous tool. It is a powerful tool that we can control.
Yes.
And that's why the program is called From Passion to Profit. At the end of the day, we have to buy back our time. Our time is important. And looking at money as a tool, as a driving like mechanism and tool that could be really not like, okay, money brings all happiness. No, but money can buy things that you need. Yeah. And money can give you the resources and give you access to opportunity that you weren't granted to if you didn't have any money.
Right.
So that's why the profit and the monetization is key. But if we were also to take a step back and identify what personal branding is, because a lot of people are like, okay, I want to create a personal brand, or how do I monetize my personal brand? But they think about the logos and the website and like all of the external things that like don't matter.
Yeah.
But if I were to come down to one thing that personal branding is, it's your reputation.
Yes, absolutely.
It is what people say about you when no one is looking.
Yeah.
It is what people say about you when you are not in the room.
Yes.
It is literally just one key thing. Personal branding is your reputation.
Yeah.
Who are you when no one is looking as well? And what are people saying about you when you're not around? But the interesting thing too, Anthony, that I really wanted to share was when I looked into personal branding, because I was like, I really want to know like the Google version of what personal branding is. And it literally was defined as the process of intentionally defining and promoting one's identity, values, and skills to the public. And interestingly, I'm like, okay, as I'm Googling, I see this other like definition that pops up from Harvard, and it says, I kid you not, an intentional strategic practice in which you define and express your own value proposition. So how are you being intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you're showing up in the world, and everything that you do is your personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, how you treat people,
Yeah.
how you communicate to people, how you show up, how you appear, how you dress, like you are sending a message. And so I think it's important that we all take time and identify, what is my personal brand?
Well, it's interesting. So I read a book a while back ago by Damon John, and it was on negotiations. Well, he was talking about the power, I think it was called Power Broker or something like that. And the way he says this is 90% of negotiations happen before you ever show up to the table.
100%.
Right. And so what he goes into is reputation. I mean, he hammers on reputation. So whether you're working for yourself as a business, or you're trying to build a business, or you're a corporation, or you're a employee or team member as a part of the business, is that everybody is looking you up to see who you are.
Yes.
You know, and so
especially nowadays.
Yeah, and what's funny
like,
is and what's really funny is that people get I would say lower thinkers about like this kind of thing, they're like, well, they shouldn't look me up on social media. That's my private Facebook. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm an employer, I'm going to go hunt you down on social media
Yeah.
and I'm going to look up to see how you show up in the world.
Right. Even before I meet people, like if I'm meeting a stranger or something, I'm like, what's your social media?
That's right.
And like, it's interesting because like that is the world and the day and age that we live in. It's kind of like a blessing and a curse, but it's also like, who are you on social media? Because there's so many facades and personas and masks that we meet. What do people call it? It's, oh my gosh, you're like the person that you show up as is coming to the surface.
Like an avatar or something?
Like
or?
an avatar, but like the person, your representative. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Your representative is what people are showing up as.
Yeah.
But it's not fully who they are. It's like this masked version of themselves that they hope to be or wish to be, which is something that I read this morning in like the book by Joe Dispenza of like breaking the habit of being yourself. Is like the identity gap that we are all navigating is who you are versus like who you really want to be.
Correct.
And it's just interesting because I think a lot of us are living in that identity gap.
Yes.
We think that we're showing up as who we think we are, but who you really are in real life and in the physical realm is something completely different.
Absolutely. And that, I was actually going to ask you that in the first part when you're saying being authentically you I frequently have the argument with people. When I say argument, we're not really arguing, but it's like a debate or questions I ask.
Yeah.
Much like with you and I are jamming, I'm like, is that really you? Or is that who you want people to see you as?
Ooh.
Right? Because when they're talking about personal branding and they're like, oh, I want to be seen, but is that really you? Right? And it's okay if it's not.
Right.
But that's the question that people have to ask themselves. So going like through your steps to say, who am I really?
Yeah.
Again, it all goes back to confidence is going to create the clarity, which will enhance their message, which enhance like how they're showing up to everybody, whether you're business, corporate, whatever.
Right.
Hey there, quick question for you. Have you ever thought to yourself, you want to launch a podcast, but you think the podcasting industry is oversaturated? Well, you're right. But did you know that the podcasting industry is worth over $37 billion? So if you don't have a podcast right now, honey, you are leaving money on the table. Having a podcast is the perfect opportunity to showcase your expertise, connect with your ideal clients, and elevate your brand and your business. This is why I created the Podcast Blueprint. In just 7 days, you'll learn how to launch a podcast from scratch. That's right, in just 7 days, you'll be able to go live. So if you're interested, go ahead and find that link down below. In the meantime, let's get back to today's episode.
All right. So again, first of all, you have to know who you are, which will help you gain that confidence, create clarity. And that clarity leads to, I think what I've heard you say is a clear message, right? Yeah. So those first steps almost have to be in alignment before you can actually develop that clear message. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. And that first step, it's definitely going to take a lot of work. So I'm looking forward to coaching people through that. But definitely, like you said, to get to that clear message, first of all, it's kind of difficult to identify what your message is in this space of oversaturation, right? Feeling as if everyone's doing the same thing. How am I going to stand out? Like, these are the questions that I hear constantly that people are saying, and I understand because I used to be there. I used to be one of those people that's like, everyone's doing a podcast or everyone is creating courses. How am I going to stand out? These are valid questions, but I'll never forget when Amy Porterfield said to me, which is a phenomenal human being in the digital course world. And so when you talk about personal branding and like when you're being known for that one thing, when you say digital courses, people automatically think of Amy Porterfield, right? And one of the things that she says is in order to figure out who you are and to figure out your brand message, you got to get off the sidelines. If you're constantly on the sidelines trying to ask yourself all of these questions, you're going to delay the time it takes for you to actually get there. Right. And so I think when it comes to crafting your clear message on who you are, how you represent yourself, go back to the basics. I'm sure people are familiar with this I help statement, which is basically saying, I help blank, and you're identifying like who your avatar is, your customer, your client, and what are you helping them to do?
Mm-hmm.
And what results are you trying to get them to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's just like identifying your customer client, your key ideal client. What are you going to help them figure out? What problem are you helping them solve? And what results are you going to get them to get? And so I think it starts with a simple framework like that and walking through that process. But I think in order to do that is, again, you have to really start with what are you hoping to achieve? What do you want to be known for? Asking yourself those questions as well. Because when it comes to helping other people and coaching other people, I really think it comes down to creating from a clear space and not a space of chaos.
Yeah.
And I think you said it earlier that a lot of people are creating from a space to be seen.
Right.
And it's interesting because as I'm growing more into who I am meant to be, I'm realizing that like you have to take away the thought of wanting to be somebody and really be like, just mentally think that like, I'm serving to be nobody.
Right.
Right. Because it's not really about you. It's about the people.
Right. And because of that, because you are creating this whole thought process around maximizing value to the whoever you're serving, is that, and there's I believe in the Bible it talks about the one who is to become least is to become the most.
Yes.
Right. So if we are so focused on serving people at the level that they need to be served at, we'll get taken care of.
100%. We're all here to be really a hand of what God has put us in.
Yeah. And I see people, including myself, like I was talking about it with Evie this morning on a walk. And I said the clarity of the message of what I do has to keep on being refined.
Yeah. 100%.
Because what I see what people do with their personal brand is they become a and I and oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yes, I can do that too. Oh yes, I can do that too. And I believe they're coming from a place of scarcity. So if I'm doing something and I don't take whatever I tell them that I can do and I do 57 things, then I won't be able to make that sale.
Yeah.
Right. Or be able to serve them to make profit. So they have to be ridiculously clear, like what you're talking about, on what their service help is.
Yes.
And then they'll be paid at a higher level to the right people.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because that's so good that you're bringing this up, because I remember when I was going through this journey of like podcasting, and I was diving into this like online digital space and like online business, and like, oh my God, like it's just a whole different world out there. Right. And so if you're not in it, I understand from the outside looking in, you're like, you know, what is that? Is there a such thing? But it's like, no, in the online world, it is so oversaturated and overwhelming that like, yeah, if you don't have a clear message or a clear identity on what you want to be known for, you can get wiped out. Right. And so the interesting thing that I've heard constantly is that you have to focus on one thing. It is not something for some reason that nowadays we don't want to accept. Right. And I'm not going to lie. I was like, but I have this and this and this and this, and I can do all these things. Right. And I literally said to you before we got started, I said, Anthony, I'm understanding now more than ever that I can't do everything.
That's right.
And I feel so much like release. And it's interesting because the moment that I recognize that, and now that I'm walking fully into this space of like, I know I can set up a podcast. I know I can record. I know I can edit. Doesn't mean that I have to.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I should. Doesn't mean that I have to be all these different things when I can just buy back my time by getting someone else to do it. Yep. And so I think that it is so beautiful that if you have multiple gifts, because I believe we all do, I don't believe we all just have one gift, it does not mean that you can't pursue that gift eventually.
That's right.
It just means that in the beginning, as you are starting to create a foundation for your personal brand, I encourage you to please just focus on one thing, so that one thing could be the vehicle to take you to the destination that you want to be, which is like really a space where you can operate in all of those things, right? And then over time, you honestly might realize that, you know what, I did enjoy that at one point in time, but now I actually have this other interest, which goes back to just where I originally started my podcast. It was from a self-fulfilling place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime we start businesses or, you know, something, it's like, okay, I'm good at this thing. I could serve people in this way, or I enjoy doing this thing. Let me figure out how I can turn it into a business. And that's beautiful. But over time, the business and the strategy is going to catch up with you.
Right.
And you got to figure out like, okay, I got to choose one thing to focus on.
Yeah. And that's what I was telling Evie this morning. I was like, I can't. So when somebody's like, well, what do you do? My head goes into my catalog back here.
Yeah. You're like, let me see.
But I
let me pull out the receipt.
I could do this. 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 And I said, in reality, and this is what I've been really digging in and like going through this here is very helpful, is just thinking of, Anthony, what do you execute on at a very high level that's very different than everybody else?
Yes.
Not because I'm trying to be different.
Right.
It's just different.
Right.
I'm not trying to be different.
Right.
I'm just doing, like, when you're talking about doing an analysis and going through and discovery, like that's where I'm at right now, is like, where is my highest level of genius?
Yes.
Right. And then living
100%.
inside that high level of genius. And then what I've recently discovered, so for somebody like you, who's like an expert on personal branding and taking that to the marketplace, is also like, I have friends that are COOs that specialize in operations. I've got friends who can do different personality assessments and saying, can I do operations? Yes.
Yeah.
Can I do team building? Yes. Can I do XYZ? Yes.
Right.
And it's saying, but that's not my highest level of genius.
Right. Right.
Right. Here is my highest level of genius. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that right there, that like,
that's good.
got it. Yeah.
That's
and
good.
I think that's what I want people to get and understand with what you're sharing.
Yeah.
Is they're trying to maybe make money, make profit because they have 37 things to offer
100%.
to try to get a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
But in reality, what they're doing is they're squishing their opportunity to serve somebody in a greater capacity.
Right.
And because they don't have enough people. And so they're trying to get a lot of sales off of few people, as opposed to finding lots of people to make fewer sales. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then if we were to like package this in a way to where we're speaking to, let's say, business, online business owners who are coaches and they have courses and they have digital products, when you are not clear on the thing that you do, you are unable to create a clear offer. And then you're unable to send people down. I mean, you're essentially now sending people down all of these different rabbit holes instead of one clear funnel that is going to send them to eventually work with you. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, people want to work with you because you're you. People buy from you because you're you. They don't buy what you're selling, right? They buy like how you are and how you present yourself. Like, so that's why I think going back to, and I know we keep like hitting the nail on it, but I think going back to figuring out who you are, identifying how you want to represent yourself in the workplace, how you want to show up on Zoom, on your coaching calls, like all of those things matter, right? Which is why for me, I show up like this is like me operating in my highest genius self. Like I love dressing up. I love, being on, but then other times you see me on the podcast, I have like t-shirts on and because I want people to get comfortable with like both sides of me, as far as like, I can operate and I can present very well in both areas or in both different styles, right? So it's like giving your audience a taste of who you are and all of the different versions of you. Right. Which I think is important, because as you are showing up and as you're representing yourself, again, you are now building an emotional connection with someone. And that is essentially the third piece. If we have to go down the list, building connections with people, we're building on an emotional level, right? And we are connecting because you see me, I see you. Essentially, people connect externally because they're like, oh, I like the way your hair is. I like the way you're dressing. So you're forming a connection. Then after that, we're opening conversation. We're opening dialogue. We're trying to find the connection. What's the connection here, right? And if people can't connect with you because of how your personality is, or if people can't connect with you because of your nasty attitude, if there's a disconnect, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that they're not your clients.
That's right. Just is. We don't have to help everybody. We can't.
No. And I think that's where you have to identify, okay, who do I want to help and why?
Mm-hmm.
I think we hear Miles Monroe says this all the time, but you have to be so obsessed with your clients' problems, right? To the point to where it doesn't matter what they say in a different way, you know how to solve it. And so I think I'm starting to understand that more and more, is that people don't have a personal brand problem. They have a identity problem.
Absolutely.
They have no idea who they are.
Correct.
So it goes back to what Omar says, El Takori. I think I said his name right.
Yeah.
He says that people don't have a problem. They have an awareness problem.
Correct.
And when I'm realizing that, okay, when I hear awareness, it makes me think of self-awareness. Are you self-aware of who you are and how you show up?
Mm-hmm.
Are you self-aware that maybe when you talk to specific people, you're not talking to them from an authentic space. You're talking to them because you're trying to, quote unquote, be a nice person, but really deep down, you're putting on a mask.
Yeah.
You're putting on a full face.
Yeah.
So I think really dissecting and figuring out, really being self-aware of yourself, that maybe, like, for me, I had to learn I can't be everywhere.
Right.
As a social butterfly that I am, I'm so extrovert. I could be outside all day. But as I'm growing into this new journey, I'm recognizing that stillness is peace.
Yes.
Stillness is like, oh my gosh, I feel like I can speak from a clear space.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm saying.
Right.
Because I have taken time to silence the noise.
Yes.
I've taken time to literally get rid of social media and not pay attention, not compare, right? Because like comparison is the thief of joy. But I've gotten myself to this space where I don't need to look at other people for ideas.
So you talked about being extrovert.
Yeah.
I would say that some people are extroverts because that's who they just are.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that some people are, and there could even be a scale.
Yeah.
And I will say that some people are extroverts because of what void they're trying to fill. So 100%. I need to be seen.
Yes.
So people give me good hair, nice dress, you're awesome. So I don't feel complete inside. I have a hole.
Yeah.
And so I'm an extrovert out here. So people give me, so they fill my cup.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to develop your personal brand and you don't realize that, it is a very, very dangerous place to be, because you're constantly producing content, value, whatever it is. Again, trying to please people.
Right.
As opposed to execute with value.
Right. You said so much. I'm like, that's my response.
Yes.
I'm like, I want to say so much right now.
I know.
But I just
we'd be like,
I know. I was like, let me just keep it here.
That'll be a different podcast.
That's going to be a different podcast. That's so good.
Identity theft.
Literally.
Yeah.
You said so much though.
Yeah.
Because like, you can't be all things to all people.
That's right.
Essentially is what you're saying.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to keep it there because yes, that is a whole different podcast, which we can dive into.
Yeah.
Of you have to identify who you're serving and why.
Yeah.
Because if you try to meet the needs of everyone, you are going to lose yourself.
Yes.
And you're going to lose out on the people you're supposed to serve.
That's correct.
Essentially.
Yep.
And so I think it's important to say, like, I help small business owners figure out how to develop an authentic brand so they can make the impact that they need to make, right? And it's something that has to be so simple, right? Like simple, speaking from a third grade level, because later on you can dive into it. Like your business and your website, all of that can be kind of like the portfolio or resume of like why you help those people. But like essentially you have to start if we're speaking from a space of like how to really create a profitable brand, you have to start with the basics.
Yes.
And I think you and I, Anthony, have gone through this space where we think that we can like skip all of these steps and we're like, okay, but how do I get there? Like, how do I get there? And it's like, we keep hearing the same thing. Like, you got to nail it. You got to hit one thing, become known for one thing right now.
Right.
And then expand later.
That's right.
You can get creative
100%.
later.
Yeah. And I think that I was, and I think you and I've had this conversation a couple of times where like, I don't want to just do this or that. Like, that's not who I am.
Right.
Like,
You're like,
but then after reading books and listening to podcasts for people that have already done it, like they're like, listen, niche in, work here, develop that.
Yeah.
Once you're successful, then
expand. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So it's not a, you can't do this, or, do an expansion or these other things. It's that in order to develop the workflow, develop the thought process, develop the confidence, develop the clarity, all the stuff, niche in, then expand.
I just thought of something just now that I think is so golden. Can I say it?
Yes.
Building a profitable brand is essentially starting with you, meaning that you are profitable before you even become profitable.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
If you start to think in your mind that I am profitable, I am resourceful, I am wealthy, right? It goes back to these affirmations that matter. But when we are living in this scarcity or this hustle mindset, which is why I'm understanding that hustle is no longer sexy, because when you are operating or creating from that space, the energy that you're exerting out, people feel that. And so I think that's why for me, I could be honest, when I was creating my online course, I was literally creating from a scarcity mindset that like, oh my God, no one's going to buy this thing. Is anybody going to buy this thing? Please buy it. Like, I'm literally just like I'm exerting all of this survival energy, which is why nobody's buying.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That, of course, nobody's buying. People can feel that.
That's right.
So it's like you have to go back to you. And you have to say to yourself, I am profitable before I already physically can see that I am.
Yeah. And just like that or anything that we've ever done as projects that we've done in our past, not necessarily together, but just like you building that.
Yeah.
Like that, I always tell people to rewrite that story. Like it wasn't for people. It was for you to discover who you were to become.
100%.
That's the profit that you're talking about, right? And so to redefine profit, people think profit is money because that's the way it's talked about. But things that you and I listen to, like a great guy named Jim Rohn says, he says, and Jim Rohn, a business philosopher, not the ESPN or wherever he's at for sports, but it's leave a profit wherever you are. And so that in some of the instances when we talk about with our kids is that if you go into a bathroom and there's 3 or 4 paper towels on the counter in a public restroom and you didn't put the paper towels there,
right?
But you take those paper towels and you throw them away in the trash, you now just left a profit.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the profit mindset.
Yeah.
Right. But people don't operate. Well, that's not my job. Ooh.
That's your reputation now.
That's your reputation. That's not my job. That's not my job to take care of that. You're right. It's not. But now I know how your thinking is.
And you know how many people have that mindset, even as they're working for a corporate company, right? So at this time right now, I still am operating my full-time job, but that mentality is going to kill you.
Yes.
And that mentality is not going to get you anywhere, whether you are working for yourself or you're working for somebody else. That is not my job mentality does not serve you, nor does it serve the person that you were called to be.
That's right.
Or called where you are.
That's right.
And you are essentially saying and communicating, right? Going back to the way you communicate, we're always communicating all the time, is that if you have that mindset and you operate like that, then that is what you're going to be known for. Is this person that, one, we can't trust, this person that we can't lean on or look at as a team player because you are communicating, that's not my job.
Right.
So you are now communicating that I can't rely on you.
Yeah. And I will even say that like it's important. It's important to understand that other people feel that.
Yeah.
It's more important to me that I know that you're thinking that for you. Because if I know that you're thinking that for you, I know the trajectory of your thought process with everything in life.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's and again, it's less important how other people see you
Right.
is if you don't see the mistake you're making in your own mind.
Self-awareness.
Because the rest of it will happen if you take care of that.
Become aware of who you are. Please do the work.
Yeah. Do the work. I think we've talked about like and like everything has gone back to like point number one.
Yeah, literally. So you should just, let me coach you. Yeah. So
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's like developing your help statement that all boiled back down to know you are. So you know how to help people. Build connections, build a positive reputation.
Yeah.
I know that was something that we wanted to talk about. I think we covered that. Like,
yeah, I think
build
so.
connections, increase your digital presence. I really don't think we've touched on that. And I know, okay, so let's dig into that.
Yeah. So increasing your digital presence, this is really kind of like this is the area where, this is where your business is starting, right? If you are a startup business and you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to put myself out there. Like this is the area where I would say like, this is where business starts. And this is also where Coach Anthony is here to share his wisdom with us. We're going to do another podcast that talks about what it means to actually start a business, get your business off the ground. So definitely tune into that. But if you don't have a business right now, like essentially, if we're talking to online business owners, if we're talking to people that have a product, the way to increase your digital presence is getting a podcast, getting on YouTube, getting comfortable with social media. I'm speaking to, I would say, the generation that is trying to avoid social media. I'm sorry, you can't.
Yeah.
There's so many stats that recognize and really qualify that social media is necessary.
Absolutely.
It's just another tool, a marketing tool that you're going to be seeing. I know so many businesses that are brick and mortar and they don't have a social media presence, and that is killing their business, unfortunately. But it's just like, it's where we are right now. We have to catch up with the times. So wherever you are, depending on like what your business is, I think getting active, I would say on the main platforms of like, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even LinkedIn, people are sleeping on LinkedIn. It's like, oh my God, LinkedIn is becoming like not even the new, but it is the most prolific, digital space that I think we are all ignoring.
Yes.
And I think it's because we are, looking at it as like, oh, it's just where you go look for jobs. It's like, no, it is becoming like such a high profile platform that we're ignoring and we're kind of putting to the side and saying, well, I don't need to look for a job, so I don't need to promote there.
Right.
It is definitely where you need to promote, especially if you're a business that's trying to get to 6 to 7 figures. That's where your clients are.
Yes,
they're on LinkedIn.
That's right.
So I think don't avoid that area. But if you, again, going back to depending on what your business is, if you have all of those basic social media platforms and you're like, okay, I'm ready to be seen in a different way, this is where I encourage YouTube and podcasting. Because Anthony, I don't know if you saw the recent news, but this lady, Alex Cooper, that just gets $100 million deal for podcasting.
Yes, I heard about that. Yes.
For podcasting with SiriusXM.
Yeah, Omar talked about that.
Yeah, I'm like, podcasting is working. Like, do you guys hear us at the mountaintops? Right?
Yes.
And so it was like really a switch for me to say like, I got to get myself in gear and be consistent, because I've talked about having my own talk show for a while and it just goes back to me being in my own way. But basically what I'm saying is that podcasting works. You can make it work for your business.
Right.
And so a way to do that is figure out in your business model, where in marketing are you lacking, and then increase that value there, right? And so I think the way to increase your digital presence is figuring out what do you want your clients to know about you?
Right.
And then ask yourself, okay, how can we package this in a way to where we can give our clients or our consumers something for free? Everyone likes something free. Right. So start there. Start giving away something for free. Blast it on all of the platforms. Talk about it. Get people to come in. And then from there, you send them into your funnel through your email list. You get them going. And then now you have them captivated in your email list.
Right.
And then from there, how are you nurturing them? Right. So I think that starting with increasing your digital presence just means getting on all the platforms. And I will say that we are also sleeping on Pinterest and Etsy.
I heard something about Pinterest the other day. And they're like,
okay.
It was a
gosh.
social media scheduler. They're like, and you can directly I'm like, why would you want to put anything on Pinterest? Like, that's how ignorant. I'm like, I don't know. Why do you want to be on Pinterest?
Well, because we go on there for storyboards or visuals.
But I don't even know what you're talking about for that.
Oh my God.
I don't know anything about Pinterest.
Oh my God. Okay. So usually Pinterest is where people go for like ideas and stuff and like vision boards and things like that. But I think the only person, the influencer that I know right now talking about Pinterest is, I think her name is Jenna Kutcher. I think Kutcher. Yeah. I know her and Amy are best friends, Amy Porterfield. But yeah, if you know anything about Jenna, go check her out. She talks all about Pinterest. And I was following her for a while and I was even looking at her like, girl, ain't nobody on Pinterest. Like, who is on Pinterest? But literally I was telling Michael the other day, last night, I said, hey, do you know Pinterest is becoming like the new Instagram? And he's like, yeah, where have you been? And I'm like, oh, okay. So basically looking at Pinterest, when you recognize as you're going on the app and you're looking for, let's say, I'm looking for some like apartment style ideas for my apartment. I want to figure out like, different designs for my living room. If you notice that when you click on certain items, it takes you to a different link. What if you are one of those items that sends them to your business page?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So basically it's just another, like, I would say collage of like photos that you could be included in to get people to now be sent to your website, your digital product, your offer.
Got it.
Right? But yeah, it's just another place to be seen
that
nobody's thinking about. So here you go. Get a head start.
Yeah. And one of the books I just finished was talking about becoming internet famous. And he was basically saying that it wasn't really about being famous as far as like going viral. It was more about when people come looking for you based upon something else they said, that there is a digital footprint of you everywhere.
Wow.
And so if they go, if you're saying, here's who I am, and you're talking to people, but then let's say if I go do a speech and then people are like, well, who's Anthony Blanco? And I have no digital footprint anywhere. And they're like, I don't know if I believe that, because he's nowhere. He's not on LinkedIn. He's not on social media. He's not on this, not on this. Yeah. So my words don't match up. And people will be like, well, that just shouldn't be. Well, it doesn't matter what shouldn't be. It just is. That's just the environment that we're in. So we got to show up. All right. So let's land the plane.
Yeah.
Because you and I mean.
We could talk forever. We really can. We should forewarn them that like this is not going to be the last time.
Yeah.
So
yes,
we're just getting warmed up.
We've got some ideas for the future. Yeah. So
stay tuned.
Yeah. So we talked about identifying who you are and the importance of that.
Yeah.
We talked about crafting a clear message, which was bound about knowing who you are.
Yeah.
We talked about building connections by building a positive reputation. Okay. And then we talked about building a digital presence. Yeah. And then earlier you talked about buying back your time.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say, like, from what I remember and everything that we discussed, just to create clarity for everybody, like during this, those were the nuggets of everything that you shared.
Right.
And I really appreciated the flow, because it's like, here's what we're going to talk about in this kind of order. Yeah. But just because of natural flow, we covered what we wanted to cover.
Definitely.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want you to wrap up with what has been shared. What are your final takeaways? What's your final thing that you want to share with everybody?
Yeah. I think initially and overall, if you take anything away from like what we're talking about today, is really trying to build your own personal brand. It starts with you. And it starts with knowing who you are, but also figuring out what your reputation is in the environment you're currently in. And if you are recognizing that, you know what, I don't like who I am today, you have the power and the opportunity to change it. And that's the good news. And so I hope that what we're talking about is definitely from a very like surface level. We can definitely go even deeper, and we definitely plan to in a couple of episodes coming up. And if there's something that either of you, or if anyone is like, I want to learn more about this point, definitely let us know. We would love to turn your idea and make it reality by talking about it here on the show. But I really would just say, like, becoming profitable starts with you.
Yeah.
And it starts with believing it in your mind. And there's so many different ways that you could make money and be successful. But whatever you are doing, like, take time and be still. Take time and just figure out who you are. And is your business serving you in the way that you want it to?
Right.
And if it's not, it's time to take a step back and evaluate.
Right. So if people want to take these steps, if they want to learn more about them, what is their best way to get in touch with you? Like, what are you offering them to go down further down this conversation?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm really excited about this because I'm going to be offering a masterclass on how to build a personal brand. It's going to be coming up here soon. So definitely go ahead and look at the description below and we will get you that link. But yeah, definitely join me and us on this journey because you're going to be seeing a lot of Anthony and I, team working, collaborating. We've been waiting for this moment to come into fruition. And this is just where also too, if you find someone that aligns with your values and where you see your business going, like definitely collaborate with that person because we are pushing each other out of each other's comfort zones. But I'm having a masterclass coming up. So definitely join me there. We're going to dive into a little bit more on how you can take who you are as a person and actually amplify it into the digital realm. So we're going to dive into that in the masterclass. It's 1 hour. So definitely just join me. And there's going to be a lot of other exciting things coming out too. So we're going to have to find out.
I look forward to it.
So, well, hopefully it doesn't give me any more ideas, but we're just going to stay here.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody have a good day.
And that's it. We'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Thanks for watching the Authentic Media Podcast YouTube. At Authentic Media Company, our mission is to help you develop an authentic brand so you can make the impact that you are called to make. If you got anything from today's episode, make sure you drop a comment down below. I'm interested to see what your takeaways are. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you can be the first to know when we drop our newest episode. In the meantime, have a great day.